So, right. So annealing is just a process of finding low minima, or it could just be a maxima. So where we boil down to problems involving optimizations and also something called as probabilistic sampling. Sorry. So fine. That was just a definition. So let's try to understand that a little deeper, right? So optimization is nothing but having a constrained set of like modeling a situation, and that obviously means like in real life we have some constraints, and we need to optimize in the sense of we need to get one particular decide particular quantity, the maximum out of it. So I know that sentence didn't really make a lot of sense in my grammatical English, but okay, let's take an example, right? So yeah, classic example is like you have a pretty limited budget. You want to buy a house, and here the goal would be to maximize happiness, whatever that means, and the constraint is obviously your budget. So here you have infinite number of combinations, whether you want to like spend all your money on the size of the house, or you want to save something for the internal furnishing and the location wise also. So like uh, the takeaway is that the possibilities are infinite, but to get the maximum, like the best possible solution or the best possible combination, that that is basically known as annealing, or that's just optimization. Annealing is the process of you, like a process of modeling it and trying to get to the solution that is optimal. So right, how do we get to do this with our available resources? So like Archit explained about simulated annealing, that's basically a mathematical model of the system, and we use our classical computers to get to our solution. But as in quantum, we don't really use classical computation. We basically try to use the fundamental rules of quantum. So one rule of physics is something that you would be really familiar with. That is, systems try to lose their energy. Systems try to get to the lowest possible energy, right? So the picture that you can see here that I represent, that are like that, it's representing the like with the combination of the size of house and the money saved and all that. So you can see that the graph kind of like goes to a lowest minima type, the V shape. So this is basically how a system's energy can also be plotted in terms of its potential energy, or its overall energy, basically. So any system in our nature tries to get to its minimum possible energy. So that's how we try to that's how we try to replicate a physical system to represent a complex practical problem. And when the physical system by itself tries to get to the lowest energy, we consequently get a solution to the practical problem. That's how we try to connect our practical problem to our physical systems. I'll again try to illustrate that. So let's try to take up a random problem. So here, consider like you're throwing some balls, and then they're falling into some buckets, or in this case, you're throwing light onto it, onto a prism, and the whole system is structured in this way that it could either go left or go right on 50-50 probability, right? So if the buckets over here are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, then like you have a greater probability to find the light reflected toward the second and third buckets as compared to our first and fourth buckets. That is like pretty evident when we look at the system here. But when we try to scale it up, suppose we have n layers, then uh, we have 2 power n possibilities to where any given photon would go. And suppose in a problem where we are shooting two different protons, I'm sorry, photons, we are shooting two different photons at one go. And to model where they would go, so it would just square it up, like number of protons, it would be exponentially related to that. So if we want to calculate the probabilities of the photons hitting the buckets in terms of in using our classical computations, like if TC would be the computational time taken for calculating the path of one particular photon to choose either the left or the right at any given level, then the total time would be proportional to 2 to the power 2 into n, right? So that is in terms of classical. But when we talk about quantum systems, if we model the same thing here, and if we just try to measure the like if we try to measure the photons intensity out of each bucket at the end of the experiment. So here we are not relying on our computational methods or any algorithms. Here we are just directly letting physics do its job, letting the nature do its job, and we are trying to just see the results. So here you can say that we have modeled the system. We have set up the system in such a way that its nature is only to do that particular computation. That will inadvertently do the computation and will get our results. And in that case, the time taken would just be proportional to the number of layers, that is n. So like for example, if the light takes tq amount of time to come from one level to the next level, then the whole time would just be n into tq. So that's like drastically faster than the computational time taken by classical computers, right? So even in terms of even in terms of quantum computing, we have different types of quantum computers. Like one could be gate model quantum computing, which is like similar to what we call ASICs in our classical domain, application specific. So here what we do is we have different qubits. We apply some gates to them. That means we try to manipulate the qubits. We uh, try to apply some like physical force on them. It could be just a radio wave or anything. So that's basically applying gates, right? And then at the end we try to measure them. But this is obviously the handling qubits is extremely delicate, and basically we're just controlling them rather than letting them do its job. And since it's like difficult to coherently make sure that all the bits are coherently working together, so it's really difficult to scale this type of computing systems up. So like even right now if you see, we have like 16 qubit systems. That is the state of the art, like that. Or like that, that that is like say for a particular application, they can map the game resources to perform large number of different types of applications. So, and now let's come to annealing. Okay. Set up a system, then we do its job, and designing uh, and we'll see how also, since we are system do job in controlling or manipulating the qubits in between, so we can see like 2000 bits 2000 qubit quantum annealing systems right now, like as opposed to like 16 qubit quantum computing systems in gate model quantum computing. Okay, so
Okay, now we can see the images.
so oh, okay. Earlier we were not able to see the images. All right, I'll continue.
Yeah.
So okay, so yeah, when we talk about qubits, they exist in superpositions. They are like simultaneously in states 1 and 0. and when we measure them, they collapse into either state 1 or 0, right? What they collapse into can be given and particular uh, diagram that you can see. 0 and 1 both are in a like at the same level of energy. They are at a lower state than the superposition. So here that you can see the local maxima, right? That would be the superposition state. So when it like that's when the superposition is there. So when it collapses, it could either go to 0 or it could go to 1, right? So that it has a 50-50% probability unless we apply some external bias. So this in this image, what you can see is like applying external magnetic field. It could be a radio, anything like that. So it would act that the it would favor one of the uh, basis states. As you can see, it is favoring here slower energy level,
Yeah.
and it is
Just 1 second. Is everyone able to hear Kedar properly, or it's coming out in bits?
It's coming out in bits. I thought it was for me only.
Yeah. How do we solve it?
okay. That must be my internet. Oh, okay.
Try.
Let me know if it's any better.
Static. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I was just trying out something, but okay. I'll continue and hope it will make any difference. Okay. So, okay, yeah. So here, what we're applying is an external magnetic field, and that's called as bias. It does the job of lifting the even 50-50 probability. In this current example, this is favoring the state 1 as it is lowering the energy level, and it is pushing the energy level of state 0 up. So naturally, the qubit will prefer to fall into the first state. This is the concept of applying external bias to the system. Now, when we talk about entanglement, quantum physics is all about entanglement. If we have two different systems, if we bring them close, then they naturally get entangled. Then you keep them apart, however far they are, in their effect of entanglement. So what we mean by that is, if we have two electrons with spins zeros and zeros, they're entangled in such a way. You take them far apart, they would still be entangled in the same thing. It would either be 0 0 or 1 1. It can if you see the state of one electron, and if it comes out to be state 0, you can be sure that the other electron is also in the spin 0. There is no question of it being in spin 1. So that's called as entanglement. And entanglement could also be in the form of opposite states. If one electron is 0 and the other is in 1. But in either cases of coupling, the rule is defined. Either it's the same state 0 0 1 1, or it's the opposite states 1 0. So when we couple them, what happens is, in terms of energy level diagrams, it pushes the other energy levels up, and it brings the uh, favorable energy levels down. So in case of 0 0 coupling or 1 1 coupling, it brings down the same energy level states to lower. So that's more preferable. And in terms of opposite state coupling, it brings down the opposite state energy levels lower. So that's the concept of coupling. So when we add bias to such coupled systems, like in such a way, so we create a biased kind of energy landscape. So what we were seeing here is quite the energy landscape without any bias with the coupling. When we add the bias, we have a very particular obvious minimum and some obvious maximums. rather than having 50-50 probabilities. So in this case, when we leave the system from its initial state, it will eventually come down to its natural lowest minima state, and that's just how entropy works. The physical system just comes to its lowest minima state, and that would be our solution. That would be the desired answer that we are looking for in our practical system. So we will try to model the practical uh, problem in terms of this quantum systems by applying the appropriate biases and couplers to get the natural solution by itself. All this will happen in a very, very short amount of time because it's just like system is collapsing into its natural state. So again, to like summarize, we have a large number of qubits. They are in superposition, zeros and ones together. So we apply some defined couplers among them. It could be same state coupling or different state coupling. And we apply some bias, and then we get our energy graph. And this process of applying the biases and couplings appropriately to our problem is called as annealing, quantum annealing. And this is how we program the quantum computer in the quantum annealing way. So now, Nilay would tell you about the mathematics behind this, the Hamiltonian and eigenspectrum. So over to Nilay.
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen. Is it visible? The Google Chrome?
Yes.
Yeah, it's on, right? Has it come?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a good groundwork laid by Chit and Kedar regarding simulating annealing and the quantum annealing description. So it's just a wind up that there are different paradigms of quantum computation, and among them, one is the gate model, which I guess we all are aware of, where we have different qubits in the initial states, and we apply one by one the gate operations to bring the qubits system to a desired state. And the second one is quantum annealing paradigm, which is nothing but quantum adiabatic computation. Adiabatic, you would relate it to somewhat related to thermodynamics, where we maintain the constant temperature systems and then we try to compute it. So you might be wondering why we bringing thermodynamics over here. So it's the basic logic that when there's a system and when it's in the when it's heated up, like when it's at a higher temperature, so each and every atoms and the molecules, they have the additional kinetic energy which they possess, so they're able to move much more faster, so they can do much more faster calculations than the systems which are in the cold state, which is there in the gate level modeling, where we have the qubits laid down at all absolute zero temperature to avoid any hindrance. So it's the opposite in the quantum annealing part, where you have the systems at the higher temperature, around some 400 degrees Celsius. I don't know if I'm wrong, but and then you'll slowly scale down it to 0 degree afterwards when you reach the system. So this is that. So I'll just go with the maths behind it. So Hamiltonian, in a simple words, Hamiltonian is just a function. It's just set of equations where you give, like, you design your own equation in such a way, like with the Hamiltonians, that they are different state of systems you'll have. Like suppose if they are, think of anything like the door is open or door is closed itself. So there are two states, either the door is open or the door is closed. So you're given the inputs of the different states to the system, which is the equations, and then that equations, the outcome of the equations will be nothing but it will tell you about the energy state of that state. So like that particular state, what is the energy level of it? So taking door closed at the higher energy state, so it will show that this closed door state corresponds to higher energy, certain amount of energy, and the open doors corresponds to certain amount of energy. So basically, Hamiltonian operations in physics, we use it when you want to determine the energy of a particular state of a system. So you give in the input variables, the values, and then you accordingly calculate the state of the system to determine the stability and all. So the basic formula for the Hamiltonian is on the left hand side, we have the energy, that's Hs of S. So that is just nothing but it tells it's a representation for the state of the system. And then you have on the RHS the initial Hamiltonian. Initial Hamiltonian, it just tells you about the ground state energy of the system. Like initially, what is the state of the system? So which is not more or less the ground state of the entire system. So and then you have the final Hamiltonian. Final Hamiltonian is nothing but it's the additional contribution which is brought to the system when the whole annealing process is taking place. So what actually happens in quantum annealing is when it's basically you have all these sets of equations. You given I'll tell further how do you come up with these equations. So you basically have given the input variables, and like you lay down your constraints how you want to work it out, and then when the annealing process is actually taking forward, the initial Hamiltonian part, it's minimized, it gets such that it distinguishes, and the probability of a final Hamiltonian comes near to 1. So which basically means that you have something in the ground state and you are trying to add on something and come as close as to the ground state. So in quantum physics, it's all about the probability. So the probability that you come as near to the ground state should be the maximum. That should be very close to 1. That means you have reached the optimum state of your particular system. So when you neglect the initial Hamiltonian, which is nothing but you keep on decreasing it, and because it decreases because the final Hamiltonian value actually increases as the time passes by. So yeah. So and eigenspectras, they're nothing but energy versus time. So all these different strands which originate from the y-axis, they just tell the energy level of each state of system. So the topmost strand will correspond to the energy for a particular state of a system. So if you have 3 qubits, each qubit would be in some other they can be ones and zeros. So if suppose the first state of a system is 101, then it's 110. So each strand corresponds to the energy which that particular state of a system has achieved. So it tells the energy landscape of it. And the bottommost one, you can see the downward parabola, and the one just above it. So you can see they're coming almost very near to it. So which basically it's called the minimum gap, it's called. So it just tells about how close your final Hamiltonian value has actually come down to the initial Hamiltonian. So if I see over here, my initial Hamiltonian is nothing but the downward parabola line which is there, which is touching the x-axis. So this is the initial Hamiltonian part, and my final Hamiltonian is the extra addition of this energy curve which I'm bringing in. So when it decreases, when you decrease this particular value, because your energy of the entire system should be minimum as possible. So that's only possible if my initial Hamiltonian value decreases a lot, which basically means the difference between your coming state and your initial state. Initially, your ground state is the initial Hamiltonian, and you don't know what's coming up. So that's 0. So your ground state is the energy state of the system. But when you're trying to add on the additional energy, like when you're trying to add on the additional Hamiltonians, so this will decrease and this will increase the final Hamiltonian part. So that is how it tells, and thinking that the energy of a system should remain minimum. So initial Hamiltonian decreases, final Hamiltonian increases, and then you have this curve coming over here, and which tells that the minimum gap is very less. So which actually if you're able to come as close as to your original state, it shows that that particular state corresponds to certain set of values that of the variables of the input variables. So that means that is the perfect combination, that is the most stable state of a particular system which your system can achieve. So this thing tells about that. And this is the study that if I have this is because it's all qubits over here. So suppose if I have 2 qubits, and origin tells my annealing start, and this thing tells my annealing end time. So if I start my system over here, so annealing is done at a very slow progress, because you need to achieve your systems you need to get your system stable enough. So suppose if I do my annealing very fast, so suppose I have one qubit over here and another qubit over here, and I'm doing annealing very fast before the minimum gap. So if I do it very fast, as I'm doing it very fast, the qubits will gain energy and they will shift into the higher energy level. So which basically means they're not coming down to the lowest energy level. So that is not the desirable point. So if my that is the case when I do my annealing very fast before the minimum gap. Suppose if I go very slow up to the minimum gap, and after that I speed up my system, so that will correspond. If my qubit was going to this particular strand, and if I'm speeding up now, it won't get that much of energy and it will come down. So this is just a study to find out the position of the minimum gap. So which and this position actually correspond, it tells the information about the global minimum of the entire system, and which basically tells about the state which is the most optimum one. So this is just the again spectrum. So yeah, so then you actually have classical flipping and quantum tunneling. So you might be wondering, why are we talking about classical flipping over here and when we are dealing with the quantum annealers? So this thing is, initially in the quantum annealing, all the qubits are in superposition of ones and zeros. So and then that means your initial step is nothing but it's in the superposition, like your initial Hamiltonian, which is in the quantum domain, because your initial qubits are in superposition, unlike in the superconducting ones, because where they are in particular state, they are not in superposition initially. But in quantum annealing, all the qubits are in superposition initially. That means your initial state of a system is in quantum, and then when you measure it out, that means after they have achieved their energy global optimum, global minimum, that means they have reached a particular energy point. Also, that means all the variables have come down to a particular value where they are best in combination. So that means they have come down to one particular value, either 0 or either 1. That means the initial step is the quantum part, and the final Hamiltonian which you're trying to add on is nothing but the classical part. So yeah, so what they can do, so if there are two states over here, so they can be either classical flipping due to thermodynamic actions because of high thermodynamic hopping, where qubits can jump between each states and attain the fact the potential the potential wall between them rises so much above the energy which they possess. That means they can't jump over it. Until then, they keep on hopping there and there. But in the quantum part, you have something called quantum tunneling, where even though your system has a particular amount of energy, and there's a barrier which has a particular amount of energy which is greater than the energy processed by the system. But because of quantum tunneling, the system can break through that potential barrier and go to the other side. So this is the quantum tunneling, which is actually used in annealing quantum annealers. And yeah, then we have the cost function, which was already earlier explained by Chit. So cost function is nothing but it depends what you're trying to calculate, that the function value which you're trying to calculate. So suppose like the example Kedar gave, like if a person wants to find the best fit house, like the where you feel your entire luxury and even it's in your budget. So fixating which type of house will be the cost function over here, and the state will be the different combinations, like whether you're going over budget and you want a small house, and all those permutations and combinations. So cost function is nothing but the value of what function you want to determine by quantum annealing, and states is nothing but the different variable inputs you're giving it to the quantum annealing system to determine. And yeah, and then you have the quantum probability. So it's a varying graph, that is energy landscape, and where each point corresponds to the probability that this state will have is the most prominent one. So that is nothing just about the cost function in state. So how do we actually formulate it? So the main aim is to minimize the cost function, which is nothing but the function of the desired variables. And yeah, so and all the variables are discrete in fashions. That means you can either assign them 0 or 1, or you can even assign them plus or minus, which is nothing but called Ising spin. So Ising spin is just based on the Ising model, and Ising model is just a mathematical model which it tells that any distinct discrete variables, they can be mapped down to magnetic spins, and then you can give those spins to the mathematical model, and then you can compute it further. Like, so it's just about that. So you have the cost function or the energy function, or to say classically, you have the Hamiltonian represented by H naught, and then you have this formula where sigma I and sigma j are nothing but the Ising spins. So all the discrete variables, they'll be mapped down to particular Ising spin, either +1 or -1, and they'll be given it to the system, which is nothing but the, you call it cost function, energy function, or the Hamiltonian. So this is nothing but, so that means there's certain function which is dependent upon certain discrete variables, and you want to find the best combination of those discrete variables. So you run down, you give the inputs to the quantum annealing system. That means you define what function you need to get the minimum value of, and then you give in the variables, and then you let the quantum computer explore all the possible states which are possible with all those variables, and it then shows you the energy landscape. And to the energy landscape, you can compute the global minimum. That means which tells about the minimum energy state, and that state will correspond to the certain particular values of the input variables, which means you get your best combination. And so the mathematical proof for the quantum annealing and even the simulating annealing is the convergence theorem in mathematics. So this it's a study by Gaiman for the red part tells the red line, it's for the simulating annealing. This is a study done by Gaiman, and the blue part is a study for quantum annealers. It's done by Morita and Nishimori, and you can check about, like, Nishimori is like one of the famous in the quantum annealing. He is the one who developed the theory, and yeah, so it basically tells you have the control parameters. Control parameter in our case would be nothing but the temperature, because you gradually decrease the temperature. So in the simulating annealing, it's T of T. That means the capital T represents the temperature, small t represents the time, and is equal to C is nothing but a constant, N is the size of your system, how much it is, and this is log T. So, and then this is gamma T, and which is equal to e power minus C divided by N. It's the same thing, but this is a different constant. So it just tells, it's just comparing simulating annealing versus the quantum annealing, which just tells that how quantum annealing is better than the simulating annealing. But it's not always the case. There are cases where simulating annealing is proved to be better than quantum annealing. So you can see over here, the blue line shows the quantum annealing. So that means the quantum annealing system is able to reach the minimum energy level very fast, and because it goes up till to the infinite time. So which convergence theorem is actually tells that given the infinite amount of time, you will definitely reach a state with lowest energy level. But yeah, lifetime is very short. You can't live till the end of the universe to get your values. So that's how we play around with the n value and c value to accordingly manipulate the rate. So this is the equation which your final state of the system, that is Hamilton, is equal to the initial Hamiltonian plus the additional H quantum Hamiltonian which we're trying to add it on. So this is just the mathematics. I won't jump much into it. So the computational complexity, SA is the simulating annealing. Delta E just represents the energy difference, that the residual energy level. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So and delta E tells about the energy, and it's almost equal to it's given over here as capital T, because in statistical mechanics it said that if your temperatures are very small, they are almost equivalent. They are almost like it says that if your system's energy is very small, so it will be in order of the temperature of the system. So that's why it's given approximate sign, and you have the same variables over here which tells about the, it just shows the given amount of time, like how much time you need for the system to get into the minimum state. So you can see delta E delta is its dependence, like it's very large in this case of simulating annealing. But when you see the case of quantum annealing, you get to see it's the log delta over here. So over here, if I increase my delta, it will decrease the part, but it will again increase the time. It won't increase that gradually. But if in this case, even if, like, suppose if in the simulating I have my delta as 10 power 6, so it will go 10 power minus 6, and it won't gradually decrease that much. But in this case, if I have my delta as 10 power 6 over here, when I take a log of it, it would be in order of 10. It will mean, yeah, so, and it will gradually decrease the time. That means you will be able to achieve the state very faster. So yeah, and the very reason why we use quantum annealing is for solving a combinatorial optimization problem, which basically means you try to find the best set of variables to get your results. So one of the main famous is the traveling salesman problem, where the problem is the salesman should cover maximum amount of cities with the shortest path distance traveled. So you you want to minimize the cost function, which where the cost function nothing but the tour length. So that is the thing which you want to optimize it. So you run the Monte Carlo simulations for it. So for 102 cities you're running it. So you try to map down your equation into the Ising model. That means you represent it with the terms of the Hamiltonian, and then this is the graph. So residual energy is nothing but h of tau, which represents the energy state at that particular given time, and E true is nothing but the energy state of the ground, like the ground energy state level at the minimum initial what is there. So the difference between them tells about the residual energy level. So the smaller the value on the y-axis will tell that is much more efficient. So you can see SA is nothing but a hollow black dotted line, which does not read that low energy residual level. But when you see the quantum annealing, it shows it reaches very small, it comes down to 0.5, which shows that simulating annealing is not that well good enough for traveling salesman problem when compared to the quantum annealing part. So this was the entire brief of the mathematics.